This video is meant to introduce what I'm calling the Foam Blaster League. Right, this is a casual competitive format that I came up with on how local Nerf clubs can introduce a little bit of competitiveness into their events. This is not like a specific game mode per se. This is more of a stat tracker, right? So it's meant to let players kind of see what kind of stats they are getting and how they're comparing to the other players in the club. Again, it's meant to be a casual competitive thing. It's not meant to be like highly competitive. It's based largely on the honor system. So, right, if players are cheating, then it's just going to ruin it for everyone. It's meant to just be fun and to have a good time. So basically, what it is that once per event, a club will host an FPL game, right? An FPL game is a game where you keep track of some statistics. In this instance, the FPL games need to be single life elimination, and they need to consist of 2 rounds. And then what can happen is players can score league points during those games, right? And league points are for like the year, the season. So players score 1 league point for each enemy opponent that they tag out, and then they score 5 league points if their team actually wins the round. So those are a couple of things that players can track, and then when they track that, you can do some statistics, some stats where it's like, hey, look, these are the players with the most tags, or these are the players that have gotten the most league points. So there's a couple of different things, right? The league is meant for just those players who want to participate, but that's not to say that other players can't play in the actual games during the league. They just might choose not to record their stats, right? So this is specifically for those players who are interested in seeing how they are stacking up compared to other players. Again, it's not meant to be like, oh, I'm so much better than you. It's a casual, let's see how we're doing. Let's have some fun, keep track, be a little bit competitive, kind of scratch that competitive itch. Okay, so now let's talk about what an actual FPL game looks like at an event. So, right at the event, they'll play the round, and then after each round, they will go and they will record some statistics. The individual players are going to need to go and record their score. So I created this template for you. You can of course use your own template, but this one contains all the information that you need to record the stats that I recommend recording. But if you want to record your own, then you might need to modify the template. So in this instance, after the individual player gets tagged out in say round 1, they'll come over here, they'll write their name down, they will mark whether or not their team wins the round, they'll mark the number of opposing players that they tagged out, and they will mark whether or not they themselves got tagged out. Right, then the team switch, you'll go to round 2, right, round 2, after they get tagged out, they'll come back over, find their name where they wrote it down before, record whether or not they got their team won, how many players, whether or not they were tagged out. I would also encourage the players at that point to then do their own totals. You could always, of course, just have them fill out these the round columns, and then have the admins fill out the the total column. My intent is that the admins will not have a lot of involvement in the actual recording of scores in terms of like at the actual event. I think this should be more of a casual competitive format where you're really relying on the players to use the honor system to record their own scores. Um, so again, this is the template that I created that's available for you, but you can always create your own. So once players have recorded all their scores, the admin team will take the score sheet home, and they can input it into a Google Sheet to keep track of some stats, right? So the stats that I think would be interesting to have are these 5. So right, a player's tag to death ratio, the average tags that a player gets per event, the average league points that a player gets per event, and then the total tags that they've gotten throughout the season, and then also the total league points that they've gotten. So the template that I gave you for recording scores, that provides all the information needed to calculate these stats. If you want different stats, right, you might need to collect some additional data and also modify this Google Sheet. So part of the reason I pick these stats is because, right, if players aren't able to attend every event, then having some of these average um, stats helps players still be competitive, even though they might not get to play as often. So, right, a player like Sam, who in this instance has 37 league points, right? That would make him seem like he's doing really well. However, right, Sam is a little bit lower in terms of tags per event, and he's actually lower in terms of league points per event. So it could be that Sam's just able to go to every event, whereas maybe Tom doesn't get to go to quite as many events. So it's just a way to see. But also, again, right, if Tom's only been to one event, he can look like he's doing really well because he scored that one time. But you can see that, hey, Sam's actually scoring a lot more points. So it's just a way to make it so that anybody can participate, right? It's casual. It's meant to just kind of be a fun thing for players to look at. So I showed you the template for the players to write down their scores at the actual event. The admins can then take that to here, and they can actually use this Google Sheet, and it will do the calculations for you. All right, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about the data input. I'm not going to go into super in-depth in this video, but I plan to make a separate video that shows really how to use this Excel sheet. But I'll give you a quick overview. Right, so this is the tab, so you're going to click on the data input tab. This is a tab where you're actually going to see all the scores, or where you're going to input all the scores. Right, a couple things, all the green cells, anything that's in green, that's a cell that has like a formula or has very specific wording. You shouldn't change those cells. You should leave those cells as they are and not change those at all. Any of the blue cells, that's where you're going to put the player's name. And then all the yellow cells, that's where you're going to input the data, right? And some of those cells have drop downs, right? For instance, the number of points that someone can win, right? They can only win 0, 5, or 10 because there's 2 rounds and they get 5 points for each round. So you can pick which one you want. The tags during the event, right? These are the total numbers. So if you look at the score sheet, right, you're getting these total values over here is what you're using to fill this in. So right, and I set up the template so that it's the same order, right? How many points did your team get? How many tags did you get? How many times did you get tagged out? Right, same thing here. Points for winning rounds, tags that you got during the event, deaths during the event. So same thing, so it'll be in order. Hopefully it should make entering the data easier. Additionally, there is the, hey, did this person actually participate in the event? So that's to help track whether or not you need to record something for the averages. So right, the person that's in charge of this, they'll take that sheet, they'll go and they'll record all their data. And once they record it, the Google Sheet will automatically update with the calculations. So for instance, if I changed Chuck, I can look at Chuck's score right now. So Chuck has a total tags of 15 is what the data says. So if I just go and change that to 25, right, I can go back. Now I see Chuck has 33. Right. Unfortunately, it doesn't automatically sort these, and so you will have to go back and sort these after each event. It's not that difficult. I'll include that in the other video. But yeah, so that's doing that. You'll notice, right, when I change this number here, right now this is 33 over here. When I change that number, right, it changes. So this is just summing all the values in this row. Same with this, right? This is doing a calculation where it's saying, all right, this is how many, it's got the sum of all the deaths, and then it also calculates, well, what's my tag to death ratio? So it takes the number of tags and then divides that by the number of deaths. So yeah, it's fairly simple. I will do a more in-depth video on this one, but that is how the data gets input. Just some additional notes. Right, anyone can play in an FPL game, right? They don't actually have to want to participate in the whole stats thing, right? This is not meant to exclude anybody saying, oh, all those who want to play in the FPL game, come over here. Anybody can play, right? It's set up so that it's tracked on individual players, right? There's no like specific teams like your team is here and here. I mean, you can do those kind of things if you want to. I didn't set it up that way. I set it up to be, hey, let's have a casual game where we can track some interesting stats to see how players are doing against each other. And right, and it's specifically meant for those players who enjoy that competitive nature of I want to see how I'm ranking compared to others. Um, right, and hopefully it is just a fun thing. Um, I mentioned, right, there it needs to be single life elimination for the game mode, and there does need to be a win condition. But other than that, there's no specific game mode that you have to use it to. You can play team deathmatch, you can play capture the flag, you can play other games. It's just single life elimination, and there does need to be a win condition for the game mode. I already mentioned a little bit about why there's average stats. That's so those players who can't attend every event can still compete in some categories. Um, right, I'm not going to be running this. Right, this is for the local admin teams to run. Although if you have other m- clubs that you play with regularly, then maybe you want to do a combined thing there. But it is meant to be just a local fun thing for the local clubs. Again, this is going to heavily rely on the honor system. The intent here is not to put a lot of work onto the admins. If this is causing too much for the work for the admins, then I don't think it's a success. I think the intent here is right. It gives the players put on their use their honor system to kind of add it in, and then right an admin can go and he can put in some data. And maybe it doesn't even need to be an admin. Maybe it's there's a player that hey you're in charge of the FPL because this is something that you're interested in. So right, it's just again, it's a way to casually compete. At the end of the season, maybe you'd like to do some kind of awards for it in the different categories. Have something I don't know. It can be fun to do things like that, right? If you do, I suggest you keep it simple. I suggest that it doesn't have any real monetary value, right? This is not meant to be like a highly competitive event. This is meant to be fun, casual, but still scratch that competitive itch. So that's what I have. Again, I will be creating a more detailed video on the Excel sheet because I know that can be a little overwhelming to how do I use this. So hopefully I'll be able to do that. But yeah, thanks for listening. Hopefully this is something that your club would enjoy, and thanks so much.